Are you ready to take your photography to another level? Well, this lesson is going to go through in the water photography. This is a step up from shooting from the shore. It's not for everyone, but if you feel confident in the water and you want to give this a go, it can be phenomenal. The results can be absolutely stunning. It's not as easy as it looks. Just jumping in the water with a camera, lining up with your surfer takes a lot of practice, a lot of skill. So I'm going to reduce years of working in the water into a quick lesson here, and we're going to cover four main things. One, we're going to talk about the equipment you need before you venture into the water. Two, we're going to talk about the settings you need for your camera while you're in the water, since it's in a case and it's hard to make major changes. Three, we're going to talk about where to set up for in the water surf photography. And number four, we're going to talk about safety. What you need to know when you're out there with a bunch of surfers coming left, coming right, in front of you and behind you, and what the waves are doing. So those are the four items that we're going to cover. So hang tight, and here we go. On any given day out in the ocean, you may see a number of photographers shooting on all sorts of different equipment. There may be iPhones with a little case. There may be GoPros, a lot of GoPros out there these days. GoPros on sticks, GoPros on helmets, etc. And there may be people out there with a full water housing for their DSLRs. Because I like to shoot the highest quality image, I'm going to talk about the last option, which is a water housing. Now, before we get to the housing and different kinds of housing, let's talk about some other equipment. These are sort of obvious if you've been in the water. You need a good set of fins. And I'm not talking about the scuba diving long fins. You need a short, flexible fin that allows you to kick in place and move quickly. Surf in the water, surf photography is about quick movements and agility. It's not a long, slow kick. It is being able to move, to stop, and move again, and move from your left to your right, forward, and backwards. So for these, you need a short fin. I use the fins right now. I find them very comfortable. I'm used to them. I've used them for body surfing as well. Basically, any body surfing fin is going to be what you're looking for here. Now, make sure you've used the fins before you go out and try to shoot. Make sure you've logged an hour or so in them, because uncomfortable fins will result in blisters. Blisters, not good when you're out there. This happens, especially the warmer the water you get. If you get down into the tropics, you're going to develop blisters very fast from the water. So make sure that your fins are broken in just like you would a pair of running shoes. You're not going to go out and run a marathon in a brand new pair of shoes. Same thing with fins. Number two, after fins, you're going to need a wetsuit. Even in tropical climates, you're going to want to at least use some sort of upper body fin wetsuit. Here in Southern California, we're talking about a normal surf wetsuit. Even a triathlon wetsuit will work because you're not on a board. You can have a smooth surface on it. Now, keep in mind, even though there's a lot of moments of rapid movement, for the most part, there's a lot of sitting still, and your body temperature is going to cool more so than when you're paddling on a surfboard, or more so when you're body surfing. And think about it. When you're body surfing, you're using your arms. When you're in the water and you're lugging around 10 pounds of gear in one hand, that leaves only one hand to pull, which is very awkward, and your legs. So the majority of the work you're doing is you are kicking, and you are kicking in quick spurts, and then you're going to be setting up, and you're going to be waiting, and you're going to be floating in the water. And so you need enough warmth that you're going to be able to last through the session, where your surfer is going to be very bummed with you. Another item, one that my son got me about 5-6 years ago, is a hood insert. It goes right under your wetsuit. Put the hood on, wetsuit comes on over it. Covering the ears and the head, especially if there's a little bit of breeze, makes a world of difference. So you might want to check one of those out as well. All right, thirdly, helmets. These are fortunately becoming much more popular. I'm seeing a lot more of these out there. Helmets are good for really two reasons. I'm going to say three reasons. One, the obvious you're thinking of. Sometimes surfers pitch their board, or sometimes they're coming at you and you're lining up for that perfect shot in the wave, and you get a little too close. The point of the board comes shooting out at you, a fin comes over your head. Sure nice to have something thick and solid between the fin and your noggin. So helmets are very good. Also, surfers may be coming from different directions. They may be coming from behind you on a wave where you're looking forward. You don't even see them coming. You don't want to get knocked out. You don't want to get slashed. So helmets are becoming a really, really great accessory to have out there for in-the-water photographers. The second thing that happens is when you're filming, a lot of times you are in the critical position to get that shot, but you get pitched over the wave at the end of the shot. And when you have 10 pounds of gear in hand and you're going over the wave, I can't tell you how many times I've clunked my head with this housing. And needless to say, the housing is not dented. My head, yeah, maybe a little more so. So helmets will protect you in that regard. The third thing, after you get pitched, lots of times if you're working out, especially if you're working on a sandbar area, you may hit the ground underwater. You may hit it pretty hard. And if you hit it with your head, again, you don't want to get knocked out. The helmet will come to your rescue in that regard. So those three reasons to look into purchasing a helmet. I'll put some recommended helmets down below for you to check out as well if you're thinking about doing some in-the-water photography. All right, now you've got all the gear you need to be in the water, to be comfortable, to be able to swim, kick, and stay warm. What about your camera gear? Well, if you've elevated or graduated up from the GoPro to your DSLR in the water, which I highly recommend you do, it's time to get some protective housing for your camera. So there's several manufacturers out there right now. I happen to use SPL, which is based here in San Diego. I love this company. First of all, their gear looks cool. I love this yellow. It's nice and bright. Secondly, they make a series of different ports. This is the port, and this is the case. So depending on what kind of lens you have or you're going to use, you're going to have a different port. And so basically, let's walk through how this works. Your camera housing itself here comes with an electrical wire connected to your trigger. On this one, it's a pistol trigger. And number two, I have a trigger here that'll shoot. So how do we set this up? First of all, on your camera, you have a little connection pod here that you're going to plug in, just like that. Secondly, you're going to put your camera inside. You're going to put your camera inside the housing. Take your lens cap off. And you're simply going to put the dome on top of the camera. Everyone has a slightly different way to do it. These ones, SPL uses wing nuts. You put them all on here. It connects the seal so it's nice and tight, and you're waterproof and you're ready to go. A couple things about ports. I prefer the dome port. A flat port is quite common. However, you're dealing with water, and water will collect on your port, and the flat lens, water runs off slower. The rounded port, the dome port, water tends to run off quicker and better. When your camera's underwater and you bring it up, it's going to have some water on it. If there's any sun out there, it's going to reflect off those water spots and ruin your image. I can't tell you how many great images I had, but for those pesky water spots. This is an issue that every surf photographer deals with. It's something you've got to get used to. Now, I've heard various versions of what to do to keep the water from spotting on your port. Some people like to rub the side of their nose where there's a little bit of oil, rub it on their port. Some people spit on their port and rub it in. Lately, I found a little item called chlorophyll. I'll drop this into the notes to this lesson as well so you can find this. A couple drops on the dome before I go in, rub it on. It's good for, generally 45 minutes, maybe half hour, 45 minutes. It repels the water so water's not collecting on there. Because again, the water spots are the hardest thing to deal with in the water photography. Your lens choice is also going to dictate the type of port that you have on your camera. I'll take this off for a second and show you why. What I have on this setup here on my Canon is a 10 to 17 millimeter wide angle lens. It's a fisheye lens. So if I go all the way down to 10 and everything's rounded and it creates this really cool kind of in the eye feel. If I go up to 17, it's almost like a normal lens. So I generally shoot around 12 to 14 millimeters. I will preset that when I set up my gear before I go in the water. This setup is for barrel shots. This is where your surfer is coming right at you in the barrel. And the purpose of having a wide angle or fisheye lens is that it curves the wave even more than the actual curve. So it looks like it's closing and covering even better than if you had a flat lens. So I really like that look. The downside is your surfer has to be very close to you, or you have to be very close to your surfer. So you're in that proximity of just a few feet from the board for the best images. So check out this image. This one, the half and half image, was taken right next to my surfer. He was coming right at me. And if I showed you the whole sequence, you would see him as a small figure further away and basically the board coming right up to my lens at the end. But the end result is dynamic. Here's another one. Here's another one taken at 12 millimeters. The surfer's a little bit further away, but again, see what's happened? It's curled the wave. It creates this beautiful image, and there's enough clarity in these kind of lenses and these kind of cameras that you can enlarge it enough to get it just the way you want it. Now, if you're shooting in situations where you're not getting in the barrel, and maybe you're shooting top turns or hacks, or even from behind the wave, you're watching the fins come out, you can use a longer lens. You could use a 50 millimeter lens for which you're going to need a port that's a little bit deeper than this one. And so it could be up to here. And that's simply because of the length of the camera and lens into the port. Another option, if you want to shoot even further away, and I've done this at Black's Beach, for example. Black's has a setup where you have shifting sandbars, you have shifting takeoff spots, and a big crowd generally. And you don't necessarily want to be right in on one surfer. You might want to be taking it further back so that you can see the whole playing field. In that case, you could even put a zoom lens on there. And again, that one, now your port's going to be about this high, and it'll have a little zoom ring on it for you to use. I have one of those as well. But my go-to, my preferable lens is to shoot wide angle. That's my personal preference, but you can explore with all of them. Each port, of course, is going to be an additional expense for you. So kind of get a thought of how you want to shoot your surfer in the water before you go out and buy the port. Start with one and then expand from there. Okay, camera settings. These are incredibly important because your camera is not going to be as accessible when it's in your water housing. So I try to set these up ahead of time, and there's 3 factors that I look at before I make my settings, and I'm on the beach, but not yet in the water. First of all, is my surfer. Is my surfer goofy or regular? Do they most likely surf rights or surf lefts? And then depending on which they're most likely going to do, you've got to look at the sun. Number 2, where's the sun? Are you going to be shooting backlit or front lit for the surfer? Ideally, you're in a front lit situation. So in California anyway, you're talking about rights, and so your back is to the sun. And the third element that I look at is the sky. Are we talking about a sunny sky, a cloudy sky, or variable sky? That's going to dictate some of your settings. So when we take those all together, I prefer, if my surfer's preference is to shoot with the sun at my back so they're lighting up the surfer. That gives you the best options. However, if your surfer is goofy and they like to take lefts, you're going to be in front of them, most likely looking with the sun somewhere in the background. Hopefully it's early in the morning so the sun's off to one side and not directly down the line, because you don't want a silhouetted surfer. You want to have some color in your picture. So remember when we talked about variable conditions, and we can change that with an automatic ISO. I like to apply an automatic ISO when I'm in the water. Then I just don't have to worry about it. My f-stop, I'll set at f8. Why is that? That's still the sweet spot of my camera, and I'm going to get good focus in front of and behind my surfer. I'm going to get good detail on the output. We're not looking for a super long range. You're not going to be shooting an f22 because you want to see the background in sharp focus. Again, your focus is on your surfer. Now, as for shutter speed, I will set this up ahead of time right before I go in the water. That's my last adjustment. And I remember, same as from the shore, we're looking to freeze action. A shutter speed of 1/250 or higher is what you're looking for. If you can shoot at 1/500th or even 1,000th because the sun's out bright, set it there and go for it. You can make the fine adjustments once you're in the water. Each of these housings have on them some back buttons and back dials, like this one right here, which I can change my settings, but it's a little tricky in the water, and so I try to dial it in best I can right before I go in. So I'm looking down the shore, either right or left, the way I think I'm going to be. I check the setting, I lock my settings in. The last thing is focus. Now, this is a preference. I tend to find that a manual focus is going to work best for me. And so I switch my lens from autofocus to manual focus. And why is that? If you're on autofocus, there's a chance that as the water drips off the port of your camera is going to sense that and focus on the water spots and not your surfer. You don't want that to happen. So I set a manual focus, kind of a mid to far range focus. Obviously with an f-stop of f8, we're going to be capturing pretty good focal range. So set your manual focus ahead of time so that you don't worry about the water spots. Once everything is dialed in on your camera, we're going to hook it up, we're going to drop it into your case, and we're going to head down to the shore. Sometimes bad things happen to water cases. Fortunately, I have not had too bad of a situation. I've had a few leaks though. So, a word of warning, before you storm out into the water to go take these great shots of your surfer, go in about knee, waist deep, dip your camera in briefly and bring it out. And then check through the back here if there's any water inside your housing. If there is, come on out of the water, take your camera out, dump it out, reset it, reseal it, and try again. Always, always check for water leaks before you swim all the way out to the lineup, because you don't want to be stuck out there with your water coming into your housing and ruining that expensive camera of yours. So mental check, get all your settings done, put your camera in, seal up the water housing, and then check it. All right, the third main factor for in the water shooting, you've got your camera, you've got your fins, you've got your wetsuit, you're comfortable, you're swimming out there, the legs are working. You're gonna swim out basically to the lineup. So you're gonna duck under the waves and you're gonna get out to where roughly you wanna be. Then from the lineup, you can rest there for a moment or two and get a sense of where the waves are going. Now, obviously, waves come from the ocean toward the shore. They move. And as your surfer takes off on a wave, they are moving toward shore. Whether they're going right or left, it's still pushing them in. So you have to set up where you think you're going to get that critical shot. If you're doing barrel shots, you're going to be setting up way inside of the lineup. So my plan of attack is I will swim out to the lineup. I will rest for a few moments, make sure I'm all set to go, signal to my surfer that, okay, I'm going to go set up. And generally, you are starting from your surfer far enough away that they can take off, do a bottom turn, stall, and get in that barrel. And then at that point, you want to be within about 5 feet of them. That 5 feet up to your camera is the ideal spot for you. Not only are you far enough away parallel to the beach, but now you also have to be inside the wave. And what does that mean? That means, yes, you're going to take a couple waves on the head, but that's okay. You can just duck under, let the wave go by, pop up, get set, find your surfer, see if he takes off on the next wave. 4 wave, 5 wave set, you may take 4 on the head, and then you got to be ready on your 5th one. But that's the life of an in the water photographer. So you are setting up away from and inside of your surfer. Think of it as like a triangle. Okay, your surfers at the peak of the triangle, they're going to come in and out, and you want to be in that spot. If you can get yourself lined up inside a barrel and hold that spot, you're golden. And then it's a matter of how well your surfer surfs and where that perfect spot is, maybe where they're dragging their hand on the face of the wave, maybe where they're getting completely covered up. All of that's great. And remember, we're shooting on burst mode. Okay, so now you're in position, and let's say we're shooting barrels. Your surfer is going to be coming at you. In my case, if we're shooting a goofy surfer who's coming on a forehand down the line, they're coming left. And so the right side of you as you're facing them is going to be the wave, and the left of you is going to be the shore. You're going to position, look through the viewfinder or just hold this up. As they paddle in, do their bottom turn, stall, and the wave starts to cover, your camera is out of the water and you are clicking either here or here if you're using 2 hands or 1 hand, and you're in burst mode. So you're getting as many shots as you can as they come down the line at you. As they come at you, your body is going to duck into the wave, and your arm is going to extend out and stay where it was to capture those last moments as your surfer is coming right to your camera, and you're clicking away as your body is protected inside the wave, and then you tuck in. Now, sometimes, depending on the size of the surf and the strength of the wave, this may take you up over the falls. Preferably, your surfer's already gone by and you're okay, but be prepared. It is going to happen. And at that point, I tend to pull my arm out with my camera, or I tuck it to my chest. I don't want it floating around my head. So something to think about when you're set up for the barrel shots. Now, maybe the day is not setting up well for barrel shots, but it's a nice rampy kind of wave where there's good airs, there's good hacks off the top, there's good sprays and turns. Again, you want to be relatively close to your surfer, so you're setting up for that critical spot. And your surfer should know that in working with you, they're working for one critical move at a time. This is not a contest wave where they're surfing 3-4 different moves. Because of the limitations of your placement, you're really looking for one critical spot. If your surfer understands that, they're going to aim for you when they do their move. And so if they're going for top turns, off the lip or fins out moves, you should communicate that with them so you both are in sync, and you set yourself up so that you're coming up the top of the wave and you're on top. You're not ducking in down below where the barrel would be. You're now coming up to the top of the wave. As they come up, you're shooting in burst mode as they hit the wave, do their move, and the wave moves past you. And that's the way you're going to capture that beautiful hack or whatever it is at the top of the wave with all the spray and the sky behind you. Okay, so we've talked about the camera, the settings, we've talked about the location of where you're going to be in the wave. Let's talk safety one more time, because I don't want you to go out there and get hurt yourself. Or I don't want you to hurt any other surfers out there. So a couple things to keep in mind. As you swim out, check out what the waves are doing. Which way are they going? Where are they impacting? Also be attentive to the number of other surfers out there. Where are the groups of surfers? Where are the individual surfers? Are they surfing lefts or rights? Are they coming toward you, behind you? Are they all going in one direction? You need to know those things so that your head's always on a swivel and you know where the other surfers are. Surfers will get very upset with you if you ruin their wave by being in the way. And you'll also get very upset with them if they run into you in the wave. And there's a lot of bad things can happen there. So use that helmet, put your head on a swivel, and make sure you know what's going on. Other options are kind of obvious. These are the same for body surfing. Be aware of riptides. Now remember, you can't just put both arms in and start swimming sideways if you're in a rip current, because you're lugging a camera in one hand. Now you're down to one arm and you're kicking, and you can get fatigued very easily. So make sure you got your eye on the rip where it is and just kick away from it before it gets there. If you do get caught in it, start going sideways best you can, parallel to shore to swim away from it. And you might even enlist one of your surfers, because they're on the top of the wave, they're not stuck in it as bad. You might enlist them to hold onto their leash while they paddle and you kick. Sometimes that helps in a really bad rip. Now third, remember, if you go over the falls, you're most likely going to bounce off the bottom. Not great if you're on a reef situation, but if you're on a sandbar, go in and tuck your camera into your body so it's not a loose weapon floating around. It's in tight, let the rest of your body relax, take the blow off the bottom if that's where the wave sends you, and then come back up. Relax, relax, relax. You gotta hold your breath and relax. These are basic water safety elements, but it's accented, it's accentuated because you're holding on to all this gear. Now, if you're on a reef, you don't wanna go bouncing off the reef. So you gotta be very particular and very careful to cut into your waves and come under your waves. Don't sacrifice your body on a reef. There's nothing good that can be coming of that. The final safety factor that I will mention is dehydration. It's so much fun to be out there. You could be out there for 2 hours straight and you are intermittently shivering and or sweating in your wetsuit, and your legs are fatiguing, and it's not abnormal to get dehydrated. So be aware, especially if you're in the tropics, you're shooting somewhere like that, you're going to be even more dehydrated as the warm water and warm air pulls that water out of you as your body tries to maintain its temperature. Take breaks, come into shore, have some water available, then come back in. You don't have to sit out there the entire 2 hours. You can make the swim in and out. And remember, this is not surfing. This is not bodyboarding. You don't have the opportunity to float on a board and rest. You are either treading water or floating if it's calm between sets, or kicking. And so it's a go, go, go kind of thing. Let yourself build up to those longer sessions. Once you can do those, it's great. You can be out there as long as your surfer's out there, and you're gonna have a great time together. Being in sync with your surfer is important as well. You don't wanna be chasing your surfer up and down the beach. You want to tell them that you're limited in how much you can move around. So we're going to focus on this spot, have your surfer surf toward you. And that will make for a much more enjoyable and rewarding day in terms of the images.